Hi. It's been a while. Some lovely wee poems about flowers, daffodils. And what of them? Hardy stragglers between wastelands, waste lanes, with the weather wetly trepanning the factories. By junctions of squat hope, the stooping of resolute chimneys, I saw them, thin enough to pass through the slit in a cat's eye, yellowly a salute, an assault, the meadow's broken hyle. How nature tightens her failed telepathy, frail masturbators grip on our fancy. Poets, those grim custodians of oath, tending the cut and sober fiefdoms of the field. We are picking away between panels, tablets bearing the 10 commandments of celerity. We have filled our mouth with a burst blue flame of aftermath. We have come to collapse here, lie down our numbered days amid the tepid bending farce of them. Here, with what the birds beat out between a tatty governance of wings, with the end times motto, the snake rolls up in the black phylacter of his tongue. Here they are, swollen with staying power, immortal hosts. We are dying, we are all dying, but they did not get the memo. And neither one particularly appeals to me. Vapadar. To be rid of the spring, I said goodbye to blossoms, those brown and blousy doubters after fact, their lugubrious kitsch I cut and shook all down. How life is like that sometimes, goes on convening its crushed filth in your mouth and poetry, this tumbler of ready silt. What should it mean to set it down, those tried and brackished sanctions, the nights we lay fermenting in our beds, children towing our small retorts? What have you done with your life, Biddy? I have remained to meet the weather in its bottomless monotony. I sit amidst the whim and drift of loss, flicking pebbles at the sea. But what should it mean to number ourselves among the poets, to be stood up in the borrowed offals of someone else's pain? Poets, their stony ministry, the scrubbed verbs scarred through. Poets, those new Templars moralizing everlast, baby-faced fogies, chumps and dupes. It is the clever ones I most despise, boys who would flatten his mongrel alas to a single volume of paraphrased sulk. Men of svelte pledges, words like sweated cress, turnkeys, retainers of turds, anything that savours of restraint. I saw his face fall open and needs pursuing sickles round and around, rows of enchanted pedants tucking their grief back under their toadstools shyly. There is a wrinkle in the finish of the song, a small hitch in the liberty of breath. Lift the arm, drop the needle, again, afternoons dejected and dozy. Oh, I am a poet, old wound chewer extraordinaire. To write makes my own small axis of disavowal, and I loathe myself, this tepid conceit of bees. Gibbet me to the skewed rant always, a regurgitating harlequin, eternal stock ticker of piss and rage. There was a smile, his teeth like the pale brown icons of civilization, dug up and loosely museumed. I am in the yard, rooting out, paring back. The garden at least will go out in a blaze of brevity, the brown bin shut with a brick on a heresy of lean grey arms, white fly over everything. Can we carry our former islands like an abscess in the gut? Yet here we are, inflamed, thirsty, testifying, various. Bewilderment of scorched cantos on the subject of garden pest. Fear's blackthorn shiver down a torn shank, my trembling farsight springs departing ecstasies. At night I flood out the dark more of myself into a banishment of beige sheets, lumpy mattresses. This too will pass, says so-and-so, rent and wreathed, head in the clouds, no coffee for 7 whole days, and this what you put a perpetual shoulder to. How we go on, colossus of pointless fortitude. How we go on, not knowing what for. Here I am when I am not walking. These murmur-marbled hours of dusk, these courtships and corollaries in blue, say something else. A haze on the heath, an oily lozenge of sky behind your back, ligatured loin of the reed bed ropes, the herons striding out like any wading flirt, like any pale and sojourning loon. will brood between the flare and hoar of seasons, bruised in the deluge, avenged in the threshing handiwork of updraft. Left with what I chose, with what I sought, I see the young, heroes of the present continuous, their pageants, their giddy champagne processionals. I raise them, this wiry augur of exhausted lore, doomed scholar, lofted comrade, old romantic. Say something back, ye ploughman of the outposts and the obvious, your almanac of bland beige tubers, ridiculous ledger of sky. You are also the heron, yoked to that fiction of thunder, the storm you pulled behind you everywhere. And why so silent, dark, eye bright in absentia, the claggy stink of the thing? I do not see the dead, those drowsy cavaliers, and I ford the crossing, tread a cool probation of stones. I wish you were a bird, and I heard you in its fledgling headlong, the flaunt and hazard of its bawling. Row, 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 but no, I cannot convince myself. Lost still hangs like the black hammerhead of debt over the fens. I am rooted to a stilt of tidal bone. Will daylight come? Its misnomers and stupor, a dim thought thumbed shut. It will, and I'll climb from this flat land of libraries wearily, open my mouth, dislodge an armada of wings. And this is an elegy. For you, this thick black bow, the very fulcrum of malfunction. For you, this exorbitant gravity somewhere between punchline and subtext, the whole damn day is breaking apart. To walk for hours, wild rhubarb malevolently fenced, you went out steadfast, with neither rebuke nor salute to your name, clean as they will never be clean. Rising sun of last resort, the wind-struck tree, our total church, our suffering church returned. You were with us when we were filthy, a diaphragm split with the telling of it sewn into a sprung crouch, faggots of raw fault stacked in the mouth when the mouth is a stadium of shame. It was not an act of rage, it was always an act of love. Broke open our frenzy, held us. For you, these late chalk blooms, harebells, cranesbill, thugs and sutures, you will return indeed. We are glowing with what you gave, found ways to be queasily brazen, to walk an incendiary mercy. We will travel this light in kind, and for you these fields, at last a breath, uninterrupted sleep. It's a poem called Birthday, imaginatively titled. I wrote it on my birthday. I was turning 41 and I was having some feels about that, so. Too late for starry-eyed conclusions, meet the day with the level stare of an enlisted child. In the brown cavities of apples are thoughts, something frail like a prisoner's script upon tissue, or rolling up the thin cigarette erratum of our non-event, small pane patterned in circles to the window then, for a full gazing term, for a fistful of throwback, my country slapped upside its cringing yield of down and weeds. I do not want what I do not have, what I cannot have, his acts of murky service, the short fuse of succession, hold this war of tongues arrested effort harm. Have ploughed my stomach into signs, into blank expression. At 41 the body rebukes, the body mocks my lullers, follies, vernacular heresies, decades of gaunt oats would bleed the gut of all its backed up sighs. A fool's unmutual cut into the aching foreheads of refusal, no way to live. Who are you? A raised hand warding the dewy day, fist around the vicious quickened hilt of a rose. There were men with ogres' ballads, women whose faces collapsed like drunk puddings, who were scraping the rosary from both ends. There were books, my meagre gazettes of irony, what else? Little memos of contempt, no way to live, or the supplicant's clip, confession told in garlic tirades, ginger undertones, well. And should I meet the day despite my thrusting vandals stride across these pale arenas of chalk, of corn, regurgitate purpose again and again, you cannot miss what you never had. Right, quite right. Country of eligible mischief, sallow tantrums, English eyeballs, farmer's golden fortress. He holds me to the promise of myself, made in petulance, broke in pique, to open the door and enter the bigger world. and on the subject of the bigger world. Went to Ely Cathedral and then stood there and had some feels about that and about the Reformation and the English Civil War. And this is a poem called Lady Chapel, which sounds like a euphemism for my vagina, but isn't. All images, relics, table monuments of miracle shrines, etc., be so totally demolished and obliterated with all speed and diligence that no remains or memory of them might be found for the future. Thomas Goodrich, 1541. Virtue is a verbal art. Sophrosyne, the crushed tongue treading air between pincers. The mouth is hollow, its slow continence of pain has strict a chant to echo in the chevet, in the head, in the scraping progress of pillars. Lancet answers the lancet arch, spandrels gilded abscess cupped, then struck the white stone, sighing its sinister modesty up. Silence, my scenes and cycles. To be a harem of weak needles woundedly pointing to break the slender mortise of our effort. The mouth is hollow, excised and sealed, pale curve to cradle the cancelled tendons of our beseeching. Gutted, cut all stiff expressions of harm. Names knocked into spur and stem, masons mark, vandals boast, your ordinaries portent. Through the chaste bracket of our body you pass like Asaram, purge the dumb sea, empties its tide, the dumb ship scuppers the stuttering fens. Ethelrith, to the future. Degree, decree, descent your castles and your anarchies, pivot and spit down your dowry of stale crowns, to tilt in my pilloried sleep this hymn of buboes, fruiting goiters of farcical effort of cells, to limn my wanting body into canons, into cantos, into all the pricklouse absolutes of men. Eternity is long, mine is the contra naturam that halts and dissolves your power, the cordwood wincing into bloom, your cup of tumult emptied. What do you know, with your Yas Queen flying at half-mast, your riders of whale song and unicorn tears, with your lawful and tranquilized warbling? Little world, you settle for suffering, compress your calendars of spleen into sad frenzies of debt. You and your morbid gallery of wise, your insular mission, your cellar of dignified heads. Mine is the luminous insult of flesh unmade, remade, returned, impossible body. Corruption's lean eclipse, no ribbons, no rosettes, no hookahs, tawdries hold me, the black imagined habit you sable me inside of, repulsed by gold, its needless solar telegraph. To choose this pain as proper to the body, to live within the grim ecstatic swim of it, my own ultimatum, or God's, I wade the marsh, I chance the tide, an estuary opens into me, you sink beneath my nothing weight of seas. And this one is a big old thing, and we'll see if we can do it without fucking it up because it's long. And it's called Leave the Capital, after the fall song of the same name. It really wants to be a song, but it come out as a poem, so. Dismissed from its pedant republics at last, convulsing and doubled clumsily thrust between buses, a girl going io, io, the throat unburdens itself of arrows. All of its wrecked formidables, her moon stompers, oi, inverted, pours out of herself. I hear the way her pleasures tear. In pubs, those ashtray mafiers, ashtray tryhards running a numb hand up her slick no-brainer on Wanker's wharf, and a scant tree held in the misfire of an eye. To be all muscle and no memory, the Thames a degraded membrane, sick neuritic twitch. In pubs they will open her body, a versatile blade, their dictionary of cigarettes, the aptly translated lie, clever boys, the flawless disaffected pause that passes for lotus cheaters, compress ourselves into a 5-point plan for progress, to preside over and haunt this ballad of cladding and scaffold, our tender silos, burning breathe in the jinx blueprint of it, crossing the urn in its amours, Grenfell, Greenfield, misfold in syllable and tissue, such sky, missold, dismissed and turning, little grief of methods and permissions. All roads lead to, circle and spill, the quotidian acute, and no roads shall abide its winding, the limit and eclipse of money. will be anchored and then discarded, to break if not free then thorough over the Medway, the blue-brown stretcher of small resentments, a golden rusk of light skimmed succumbing. Dream of an elsewhere we call Berlin, moonwalk the mouth through its thin obituary Deutsch, pretend to a summit of priory walls, necrotic couch serve a carnivorous species of great unwashed. Alone there with all his sovereign insomnias, and the sun, expectant brute, banging his tin drum, waiting for us to... Falling. Spectacle of last resort, radio, archive of grating, feudal melodies. Want to be neutralised in suits to the tune of an airless "Oh Baby" and celebrate dead versions. You wouldn't be the first averted eye to enter the big world and crack. Says go on if you're going, sulky wastrel face palm London is paradise with a slow puncture, and that's on a good day. Stagnant apprehensions, burials, peak liberal dog shit, thwart gobs stinging with public apology, or the hot pink mess of cynical allyship. Those bastions of homicidal price gouge, their staple of rainbow tawdries, and wow, look at us, heat-seeking and sealed against empathy, was feebly monstered, laughed up as nullified guts, going, which side are you on? Eyes like sterilised zygotes, eyes like dashcam's lidless thicket of eyes, like error into anvil, like a face vaguely razored, like munitions, components, oracles, have anything to do with the pained, miraculous expansion of being in a body, or what you mean by nature, depredations, rotting modalities dismissed. This is not a country, but an industry, shining and shouting, the brain as a hutch, the brain as a kennel. There is nothing to love here but things, she says. With my rage I could bend girders of bone, a golden ticket taped over the mouth, battle hymn hemispheres. This is where it hurts. In a city, furtive and permanent, inflamed but depleted, lie on your side in a high-ceilinged room, tidally miscarried. Hell has many mouths. To survive entails a mutation, and is it any wonder working your gorge like a pro-aberration, unceasing buildings rise like ultimatums, a textbook of trick questions, accountants' disclaimers? Is it any wonder your future, that important blue you wipe yourself on, synthetic death, backhanders, switcheroos, put your finger on the problem, poem, extravagantly roving whore. More and on. So, like, if you want to hear the rest of it, or if you don't want to hear anything ever again, or if you want to hear more poems and different poems, then what you need to do is make a donation to the Social Yet Distanced GoFundMe, because we have me. We also have other people with actual talent and skill, doing interviews, reading poems, sharing their art. So yes, please go do that, and we'll return another time with more verbiage.